You're welcome along to Monday's football show. Thanks for the Kit Kat, Dan.
No worries.
It was within that 60 seconds.
It was a sort of
go on air.
It was a test.
I couldn't enjoy it.
You sort of wolfed it down there.
I did.
Sort of not that wasn't a great sporting moment.
No, it wasn't the highlight of my day, and I didn't even get to enjoy that little bit of Kit Kat,
No.
that generosity that you showed. But thank you nonetheless.
Just trying to be helpful.
Dan McDonnell's in studio. 53106 is the text number. A little bit later on, we'll hear from David Myler and from John Egan, who were both alongside Stephen Doyle at Molyneux yesterday for Wolves against Sheffield United. A 1-0 draw in that one. We are going to talk about the Ballon d'Or, Lionel Messi, best footballer in the world. Who could have predicted? Beat Virgil van Dijk.
Yeah, so
Cristiano Ronaldo third.
I'm sure Liverpool fans will take that well.
You can't really make a case for Van Dijk being better than Messi.
It's a tough opponent to face, you know. Like, I know, like Ronan spoke about earlier on when we were in, and certainly in terms of the value and the importance to the team, obviously Van Dijk is way up there, but they also have a brilliant front three as well. You know, they didn't just win the Champions League because of one player.
But he was the most important player in a team that won the Champions League, that got to 97 points in the Premier League, and he won the Did he win the Nations League? No, they got beaten in the final by Portugal, didn't they?
Yes, I think they did. I mean,
that's what cost them.
That's already dropped out of my memory pretty quickly.
That's what cost them, though.
I remember England and Switzerland were the other two teams in it. England losing. But
you're dissing the Nations League now.
Beyond that, no. Nations League was way as all of us bores who pointed out before the Nations League started. This could end up being pretty important for nations like Ireland, as was proven. And maybe if we'd just taken it that small bit more seriously and realised maybe winning one of the home games, he might be at home for the playoff in March rather than away. So at least we're well prepared for the next Nations League. That when we're trying to talk about it, saying, well, what does it even matter? We're Ireland. It will matter eventually because we will always be on that cut line.
I still don't think people will fully accept the importance of the Nations League, which will be Stephen Kenny's first games in charge if we were to qualify. There's 6 of them at the end of next year.
Yeah, and
Kenny will be facing into.
And it does seem like they're going to try and make the Nations League remain important. So it's possible the top 2 ranked Nations League teams who don't qualify for the World Cup automatically might be thrown into the World Cup playoff picture. So a team like Ireland who's in like B, there would be an incentive to do as well as you can, and you never know, it might matter. So
more Nations League chat coming away next Monday night, exclusively on
Apologies to everyone who's just about to turn off. This is the end of the Nations League.
The problem is there's about 6 people in this country who understand fully how the Nations League work, and it's so dull that like really the only people who find it interesting.
And it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter how many times you explain it. You'll still get questions every time you raise it.
The weird thing, actually, I've just thought of it, is you were in Bucharest for the weekend, where the draw was taking place for Euro 2020.
Everyone was in it.
We were in it. And
do you know, I realised that
really cares.
Only 19 teams from UEFA weren't in the draw on Saturday. Wow. Out of 55. There was 36 teams represented in the draw. So I had to look through it and see who was the best team not in the draw. Or like the highest rated team not in the draw was Greece. But aside from Greece, like the only teams that aren't in the Euros now, like Slovenia, Estonia, like not established teams, qualifiers, you know, Cyprus have missed out. Like, I mean, it's not actually a shock really. So I mean, everyone had a sort of a vague interest in the draw on Saturday, but a lot of teams didn't really have that much interest at all because they don't even know if it means anything for them. It was really strange being there from an Irish perspective.
Was Mick McCarthy there?
No, there was an FAI. Noel Mooney and Donald Conway were there from the FAI. There obviously was a lot going on. There was a World Cup meeting on Friday, and obviously with the FAI situation at the moment, every meeting and discussion and chat, you know, bit of discussions they have. It was probably a very worthwhile trip from a working perspective, but in terms of the actual main event, it was very much a sideshow from the Irish. It's so odd, but it took all the suspense out of the draw. Like for Wales, for example, I was talking to Welsh people who were there, that they went to the draw knowing they were either going to be in one group or another group. And they knew who 2 of their opponents, I think, were before they got there. Or sorry, no, they just knew they could be one of 2 groups. So there was no moment of like, you know, like you don't want to be in this group. You know, there was a minor version of that with this amazing group with Germany, Portugal and France. But for some other teams, their fate was predetermined before they got there. So, I mean, UEFA are never going to do anything like this again.
It was a strange situation as well in that people are looking at it in slightly different ways. So from an Irish point of view, if Ireland do qualify, it's actually a reasonably good draw. It's Poland, Sweden, Spain. So they'll play Poland and Sweden in Dublin, and then you finish up in Spain. So ideally, you're in a position, you're going to Bilbao for that final game, having already qualified, having one of those top 3 spots.
Yeah.
That's the ideal scenario. The other scenario, which doesn't really bear thinking about, is that one of, say, Bosnia or Slovakia win that, and then you have this little mini league of Bosnia, Poland, Sweden playing all their games in Dublin.
Yeah.
So the first 3 games are between those 3 teams, which from a Dublin tourism point of view, I guess, is very good. That the Swedes will bring a huge crowd. I'd imagine the Poles will bring a huge crowd.
Everyone was buzzing about getting the Poles. Like the Poles there, I mean, people have been to the Ireland-Poland games in the Aviva and the one in Croke Park, where I think they're friendly, where there was more Polish people there than... Like, there's going to be a major tournament feel around the Poles. The Polish delegation are coming to stay in Ireland. They're going to base themselves here. They were bouncing around the place thinking this is going to be fabulous. But I know what you're saying, that if it's Bosnia or Slovakia playing those matches, they're not the most glamorous games, but I think there's a chance that those games would sell out because of the Polish and the Swedish travel.
Well, I think an awful lot of the games, because Ireland has such a high demand, an awful lot of the games are pretty much sold out anyways. They're not dependent, because I know I bought tickets, went in the lottery, suddenly found myself spending 500 quid in tickets.
Yeah.
2 tickets for the first game, but also the dream ticket, 2 tickets for the last 16 game.
That's the one.
Which is getting
That's
people
the
excited.
golden ticket now. Yeah.
Which could well be England against Germany, could be a repeat of last year's World Cup final, could be Croatia against France.
Yeah.
But it will be the winners of the England-Croatia group against the second-place team in the Germany-France-Portugal group.
Yeah,
those tickets are going to be hot property.
That's the best. That's going to be the best game in that round.
I'm not saying I'm putting mine up for sale.
No.
I'm just saying.
And I'm not suggesting that you're not a man of means, but I think that the fear for the earlier group games would be that some people who have no issue with money might have put in for a load of tickets for those games, and then they can get away with not showing up.
Right.
If it's Slovakia, you'll need to drain you'll sell them for whatever. You'll do whatever it takes. Like, there is an official portal for people putting their tickets, and maybe Poles and Swedes will snap them all up through that.
Yeah.
But I think that it could have been worse in terms of Ireland not being there and some of the teams that could have come to Dublin. I think in this event, I think that you will have a festival feel around those matches. They're doing fan zones around town. There's 70 part-time staff going into Wanderers Rugby Club starting from January, that are going to be working there for 5 months building up to the finals. Like, this is a massive event coming to Ireland. And
that last 16 game will potentially be the biggest game of football ever to have taken place in this country.
Yeah, I think the Porto Braga game, it just wasn't, again, it wasn't a glamour combination of a final. But no, definitely, if you think that you could have England Germany playing in Dublin, and as much as Gareth Southgate, he saw us coming, the twinkle-toed Irishman coming their direction, and it was like,
were you wearing a little leprechaun suit?
Get the Guinness on. Actually, I was talking to the Polish at the time, so I came in at the end. But okay. Gareth Southgate had said, get the Guinness on. At some point earlier, you get the Guinness in.
Well, nobody means get it on because you want it to settle.
Have it ready. Yeah.
Give it time to settle.
You can argue over it.
He understands that you need to give the Guinness time to settle.
The Swedish manager was like, we look forward to going to Dublin. Swedish fans like beer, so that'll be okay. So it's interesting to get a snapshot into what the actual outside perspective in Ireland is. Come here, get the Guinness on.
It's hard to know how it's all going to play out. It's going to be such...
It's teasing you. This is the first...
strange... maybe it actually ultimately makes no great difference in that it's a television event for the most part. You're sitting watching games. They're not all taking place in the same country. And you get to dip in here in Dublin brilliantly if Ireland qualify, or a little bit if we don't qualify. If Ireland do qualify, everyone gets to go to Bilbao for one weekend.
It's going to be a massive pain in the arse if Ireland don't qualify. It is teasing you. There's no doubt that I just thought being at that event the weekend and seeing the draw and seeing that, again, Ireland can't afford to be complacent about anybody. It's a bit like saying Switzerland, Denmark, that's not so bad. And that didn't really work out, did it? But there is a sense that, there could have been tougher groups, and just thinking what an exciting period and week that could be building up to it. And to have that here and not to be a part of it is would be pretty demoralising, I think, for people. So
playing friendlies at the Aviva the week beforehand, half empty because we haven't qualified.
Yeah, and it's like, well, the Polish team are in Carton House. That's nice. But
would we end up playing, because this is another thing we'll come to in a moment, I don't even know why I'm discussing this. do you think if we don't qualify, Stephen Hutt will be at me saying that I'm being negative again?
Oh, I saw that. Then what did he say? You should be a funeral director.
Why? Because I didn't say we were the greatest team of all time.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
I know, that was harsh.
That was very harsh. But
He should be an agent for a football director.
But if exactly,
always
make me
work-
some
there's
money,
always work
please.
there.
If Poland and Sweden, say we don't qualify, do you think we would play Poland and Sweden in friendlies in Dublin before the
Beforehand,
tournament?
I can't imagine they'd come here that quickly, you know.
Give them a taste of it.
But I think, yeah, one of these mad things now as well. If Ireland lose to Slovakia, UEFA are trying to put through this thing where the two losing playoff
That
semi-finalists play in a game in March. Now, this surely won't happen, but it is something that it's on because of their UEFA commitment, they have to play an X amount of games. And to be honest, this centralised TV deal is worth so much money that if UEFA ask you to dance for them, you dance.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So there is a way of saying,
They need a certain amount of games at a certain time.
so yeah, we won't do this, but as a result, Ireland would have to play. Now, I hope that this is irrelevant and Ireland get by Slovakia, but I'm just saying if it comes to it, that they'd have to plan this well in advance. Can you imagine Mick McCarthy, who's out of a job basically, being told that he has to go to Bosnia the Tuesday after the Slovakia defeat with a group of players? Like, that would be the ultimate test of the players' book of quotes. The book of quotes of, well, there's no such thing as a friendly in international football. As they prepare to the third four plays playoff in a League B series. Like, it won't happen, but as a result, they're going to have to play an extra game, I think, in the summer if they fail to beat Slovakia. So yeah, I mean, it's possible. There's some talk of the Ukraine maybe being one of the teams to play here.
The Dutch?
Away to Holland. Basically, if Ireland had got by Denmark, their March games would have been Holland away and Ukraine at home. So it's possible that
They'll just push them back.
those games could be rescheduled for the summer. So
The main takeaway from all of this
qualify.
is, well, just qualify, but also how UEFA, like all the governing bodies, really couldn't care less about supporter experience, which we're going to see in March if Ireland beats Slovakia and somehow Irish supporters end up having to go to Bosnia 5 days later, or even having to go to Belfast and there's absolutely no tickets available for it.
Yeah.
And at the World Cup, and again, looking further ahead, if things go well for Ireland, having no idea where they'll be playing in the last 16. Like you touched on it, it could be Copenhagen. There's 2 or 3 possible venues depending on whether they finish first, second, third in the group. And all of that is going to have... So Ireland will be playing their final game in Bilbao, and if they get through, there's every chance 4 days later they're going to be playing in Copenhagen or somewhere even further afield.
It's like, you know, Copenhagen... actually, there is an option that would be Bilbao, bizarrely enough. But then, where's the other one? There's Copenhagen, Glasgow, but I think if you win the group, which I think could be fairly optimistic. And I think the other one is it Budapest or somewhere? I'm not sure. But either way, like it's a messy series. The one thing I would say is though that UEFA, and I did chat to some people at UEFA, UEFA at the moment, the current UEFA did inherit this 12-team tournament from Michel Platini's UEFA. And I was at an event on Saturday.
He's a good guy.
Yeah, I was at this UEFA event on Saturday where they were sort of asked, could something like this happen again? And in the nicest way possible, they said, no bloody way. Germany 2024, that's when things are going to be. And when you think about it, and I did have this discussion with people, that when you think of Qatar as 2022, it's like, this 2020 is a bit of a mess. But Germany 2024 could be the rebirth of the proper international tournament. And maybe Irish football, we should just put everything to the side, forget the World Cup in Qatar, and just launch everything. Everything is about Germany 2024 when this current crop of kids are all just coming towards the prime. 2024, that's where you want to be.
You know, Western white man point of view.
Yes.
Germany's going to be brilliant. 2006 World Cup was the best organised World Cup we've been to. Oh, we don't want to go to Qatar. Oh, we don't really like travelling.
I take your point about that. I mean, I've been to the last 3 World Cups. I mean, I actually had a great time in Russia, which I didn't think was going to be that good, but it was. And there probably would have been a certain view. South America, it's awkward going to Manaus or whatever. But the Qatar one doesn't really tick the box for
ruin our Christmas,
the football experience, you know. Like the Qatari fans with their rich football tradition, they deserve to have a World Cup in their region. I mean, with Russia, you could make that point.
It's not the. We're going down there.
We're going to
circle off.
You started off with the Nations League, and we're going to Qatar.
The grassroots of Qatari football. The grassroots of Qatari football.
The football family.
They don't deserve to see. Unfortunately, I don't think the grassroots of Qatari football are going to get
the Qatari football family.
Yeah, I don't think
they already have families of substance in Qatar.
Will the Omani football family be coming across?
I don't know. When will we see Oman again? Questions that we haven't asked.
We probably owe them a couple of return matches at some stage.
It's buried away at the bottom of the contract
somewhere. With a £50 million debt, I'd say anything is possible.
Again, I mean, the FA will dance for anyone.
And who'll be doing the dancing is the biggest question right now.
There is no one to dance.
John Foley stepped off the dance floor before he even got on. Before he even got on.
It's like the old school disco. It's before, like, it's the early stage. It's like Ace of Base is on or something, and Foley he's not even gone there.
So,
he's out of the building.
If anybody missed this, John Foley was due to start today as the interim FAI CEO, but he announced this morning that actually he felt there wasn't enough support from key stakeholders and decided not to take the job. There was a statement then later on in the evening from Shane Ross, basically almost admitting that they were the key stakeholders, that they feel that anybody who had a past association with the previous regime shouldn't be involved, that they need to get as quick as possible the 4 independent directors and get the search for a full-time CEO underway. We get to that. What's going to happen for the next week, month, 3 months?
Yeah, listen, there's no positive spin on this in the sense that the FAI board had ratified John Foley's appointment, which again had raised some eyebrows, in the sense that it wasn't just about maybe this Shane Ross thing, because Foley is thought to be very close to Sport Ireland, and he's done Athletics Ireland and Cycling Ireland, so he's very much in the administrative circle, but he had been on the FAI National League Executive Committee for 12 years, which wouldn't have been regarded as a particularly effective committee. So he was someone who, there's a picture of him outside Merrion Square with John Delaney, Michael Cody and various other FAI, the old FAI as they might be referred to. So that possibly wasn't a great look for someone who's been brought in. They've had that with Noel Mooney and he would have faced similar questions. But
You said administrative circles there is where John Foley would have been known.
Yeah.
Like that presents part of the problem for the FAI, is that they're looking for people from within Ireland who are aware of how the structures of Irish sport work, from dealing with Sport Ireland, dealing with government, and that's something that John Foley was very much on top of. Presumably that's why they brought him in the first place, was that he was aware.
Experienced head in that world. And I think, as you said there, like what is this stopgap person going to do? And it is true that this is a stopgap because the feeling is that the FAI can't appoint the next CEO, the actual replacement for John Delaney, until they have their 4 independent directors on the board. And it feels like they want to get the 4 independent directors who they'll have to oversee that process. So like the appointing of a CEO is a big job that they have to get right. So like they haven't put the advertisement out there yet. So they have to get advertisement. Anyone out there is knows recruitment and so on. Like it's going to take
somebody
a period
for that
of time.
type of role is going to have to give 3-6 months notice
in their job. Exactly. So unless it's someone that you're suddenly getting someone who's out of work. So there's a lot of hurdles to cross, and the feeling was that Foley comes in now because the FAI have big decisions to make on their finances. The accounts are going to come out, they're going to outline debt, they have business plans laid out. They've had UEFA helping them out. I think there's a few things that are going to attract some comment building up and around the AGM about the FAI's finances, and the feeling was that they needed sort of a full-time administrator in there who could help them through that period. And
also I'd imagine, because if and when the figures do come out, and I think Paul Cook said at the time we'll be shocked by the actual figure, and then the rumour of the last few weeks was somewhere heading towards 50 million, up from 20 million. Cutbacks are going to be needed, and there is a other side of this conversation that's difficult from people, the day-to-day people working in the FAI. There's every likelihood there'll be job losses out there. There'll have to be cutbacks. A 50 million debt.
There's going to have to be some. There's going to have to be some
cutback.
pain somewhere. Yeah.
So, who makes that decision? Because if you've 50 million debt, they're not going to say, "All right, come back in 6-9 months' time, and you've got a CEO, and we'll hang on till then." They'll be expecting that cutbacks are made straight away.
Yeah.
And is there people making those decisions who have the knowledge of the structures of the FAI, where they know where the cutback should be made?
Well, they're all excellent points, and they are the issues that you're facing. Like there's, who makes those decisions? The board make those decisions ultimately, as they always have. And I think, you speak to people who've been around it, and they would have different opinions on where they can save money. Like there would be some people I've spoken to who would have the view, and it's a very fair one. For example, over the last decade, there's been a large level of spending on the senior international management team and staff. And actually, if you spent a bit less in that department, you could probably, save some pain in other departments. But the flip side of that is they are the ones who can also generate, 9 million by qualifying for a tournament. So that's why that spend will be justified. But there are different opinions and views. Like I said, UEFA have been in there. There might be some stuff in the papers the next day or two. UEFA would have different views on ways to save money. The FAI, there would be probably a traditional way of going, well, if you're in trouble, you just look at pay cuts or staff worries. What I do know is that their staff in FAI, more than anything, like they're actually worried and concerned. And what's giving them that worry and concern is the absence of leadership that's there, the absence of firm leadership in the building. Because even if you think about it, I mean, it's actually an interim board to a degree. McDonnell Conway is going to go at some stage. He's due to go next summer. So actually, like, you are right. Like, who do they look to for that firm guidance now, for that certainty about their future? If they want to go and knock on someone's office and say, "What's my story?" I mean, now they don't have that. They don't have that person to actually go and see.
Is Donald Conway that person?
Well, Conway's, as far as I know, he's effectively put a lot of time into it, so he's pretty much there most days, even though he's actually only he's not an employee, like he's the president. It's a ceremonial title, but he's retired, so I think he's put a lot of time in there. Paul Cook is the vice president. He's a former newspaper executive. He's a chartered accountant. I think he's someone who might even have been mentioned as an alternative for the interim CEO. So there are people around the place, but they're not. Like Noel Mooney wouldn't have been a universally popular appointment at all because of his past. The one thing you would say about Mooney, and I've spoken to this in a positive sense, is that like he was there around the building. He was trying to manage things. Now, I also, from speaking to people, that it got to the stage in a 6-month stay where after 3-4 months it's like, well, this guy's going. He's not hanging around, and so his opinions only carry so much weight because, well, he's out the door. Yeah. And this is the thing, like, you need some form of certainty, and it's true, you can't necessarily have an interim person making huge decisions that your successor has to inherit. This is the big strategy decisions have to be made now, and the last thing you want is some CEO defending their situation in 18 months time and sort of saying, well, I mean, to be fair,
mistakes were made.
I inherited this. So it's not a good picture. As I said, there's no positive spin on this. I mean, best luck to the FAI. They have to try and present one. But
anybody in them? You mentioned Paul Cook potentially.
I mean, that's someone
going back to Ria Walsh.
That springs to mind.
So we've had 3 interim CEOs. John
You sort of forget that Ria Walsh did it for a period of time as well. I don't know. Like I think that in an ideal world, you try and look for someone who the first thing you say about them is, well, he or she is linked to them, was there for this and for that. But as you mentioned, like, you need someone who's out of work to be available to come in and help you straight away.
You can totally understand, and I think Shane Ross is probably reflecting a lot of people's views, that there needs to be a clear separation from the previous regime, the old FAI. But I'd imagine there's a lot of people in the FAI who didn't agree with what was going on, who may actually have a lot to offer. Is it right to they are thrown out and their opinions are thrown out?
I guess it just depends. The higher up the ladder they were in the FAI, the less excusable that makes that. Do you know? I mean, if it's someone that I was at a lower... Like, if it's someone who worked in the FAI 10 years ago and they were low-ranking member of staff and they left to go elsewhere, I don't think you can go, well, they work for the FAI. I think if it's someone who has sat on high-level boards and, has been involved in executive decisions that are, someone who might be mentioned in various reports as having been privy to certain decisions and so on. Like, for example, this was a problem for Ria Walsh around March, April time, that she was one of the people who was aware of the 100,000, for example. Now, she found out about after the event, but still, that's just a problem. It may seem unfair, but the optics do matter. But there's no quick resolution. Not about having the AGM now, the 28th of Saturday, 28th of December. That initially, that was being mentioned as October, November. Now it's 28th of December.
And Independent 28th of December. How can you have an AGM on the 28th of December?
Yeah. But I think they're accruing small fines as they go along for every time, because I think there's company law. I think you need to get your accounts out. Right. Between a particular. The 2018 accounts have to get out at a certain point, and you're into like December 2019. It's not major fines. I'm just saying, it's just they have factors to consider here. And if you're in 2020, you go into 2020 into January, and we're presenting the 2018 accounts, and also they're restaging 2016 and 2017 as well. It's not great. It's just not like it's been a bad year.
That's fair enough. I think. It's been a bad year.
That's a fair description.
Fair description of the FAI.
Someone referenced the reading in the years earlier, yeah.
Or has it been a good year?
No.
Change? Is that not good?
Reform. Yeah, that's true.
We don't have time for this right now.
No, we don't. No, that's one for.
Because Ryan is wondering, does Qatar even have grass, let alone grassroots?
That's a good point. It'd be artificial grass without a shadow of a doubt.
Boom.